Okay, so we're going to do part 3 of our corner to corner blanket. I have gone ahead and I finished the first block. All the blocks are going to be done the same way. So once you finish them, don't break your yarn, and you'll have ended in the main color, and that's the color that we're going to continue. You can see how I have all the tails still. We're going to crochet over them. So let me show you how we're going to do that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we want to get to the first corner, okay? But you'll see that the corner is behind where my hook is because we joined down over here. So we're just going to turn our work over, and then we're going to slip stitch until we get back. We don't want to go into the space. We want to try and go into the stitch. So I'm just going to slip stitch over. And unfortunately, this is not the most difficult part of our project, but it is a little bit frustrating because what we are going to do is on each side, we're going to put 3 single crochets in the corner and then 28 single crochets along the edge. And you just want to kind of go in wherever you can. A lot of times there's not a stitch for you to go into, and it will take a little bit of spacing for you to figure out how close or how far. So you may get halfway across and realize you have too many stitches, have to undo it, or you get halfway across and realize that there's not, you have too few. So that's the frustrating part of it. But as you go along, because we have to make 24 blocks, as you go along, it's going to get easier to judge it. So I'm going to slip stitch right into that corner stitch, and again, not into the space, into a stitch. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to do 3 single crochets in the same spot. And that is my first corner. Okay. So now we're going to rotate and we're going to go down this edge. And we want to pick the same number. It's going to be 28. So all sides are going to have 28. So it doesn't really matter at this point if you go into the whole chain, around here, or if you go into a stitch. But we want to work 28. So we got 2, 3, and we're just kind of going wherever we can. 4, 5, and if we look at this, I try to have 20 stitches by the time I get around to here, okay, and then I can fit the last 8. So we're just gonna again go to 28. So we got 5, 6, 7, 8, 12. Okay, so, and you can see I kind of made them even. I didn't go too close, and now we've got 8 more to do. Now this is the time where if you're 1 or 2 off, you can put 2 together or you can decrease, but we want to get as close as we can. We don't want to have them all spaced out and then a whole bunch right in a row. They want to be even. And then I'm going to do one last one in here. So that gives me my 28 across. And if you want to count to make sure you do have 28, it is important because all the blocks want to be the same for when you're putting them together. So then what we're going to do is we're at the next corner. So we're going to do 3 again into a stitch if possible, as opposed to the space. Because if you do it just in the space, it doesn't give us that little turn that we're looking for. Okay, it'll just kind of be spaced out. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then when I get to the third side, I'll show you how we're going to crochet over the tails. Okay, so I did my 28 across, and I'm ready to do my 3 in the corner. So again, I'm going to try my best to go into a stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now we're going to do our 28 again, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the tail just on top of the work, and then when I go into the stitch, I'm going to make sure that the tail is between the hook and the working yarn, so that when I pull up a loop, I crochet over the tail. Okay, so you're just going to keep doing that with crocheting over the tail. Go for at least 4 or 5 stitches to give it a good 2 inches, and then you can lay it in the back and keep going. At the end, we're going to cut those little ties. Okay, and we just keep going across. So let me just count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it's kind of short, so now I'm just going to kind of leave it in the back. And then I've come up to the next set of tails. So again, I'm going to make sure it's laying on top. And then you'll notice that now I have 2 colors for tails. So again, they're just going to lay on top, and I'm just going to crochet over them. Okay, and you're going to do that all the way around for all the tails that you have. Okay, if you forget or you miss one, you can always weave it in at the end. But we're going to just go across, and I'll get back to you once I've done the other 2 sides. Okay, so I've done my 28 across. I've gone through all 4 sides, and I'm just going to join with a slip stitch close to the corner, so in the next stitch. Okay, then I'm going to cut my yarn and fasten off. And if we look at the back of our work, you'll see where our tails are in. So what I like to do is I just like to pull them through a bit so that they're taut, and it pulls up any slack that they may have had. And then you don't want to pull them too tight because they'll pucker the fabric. But then carefully you're going to cut them so that they're close. But we want to make sure that we don't cut the fabric. If you want to weave them in more, you certainly can. I would probably suggest it if you're making anything for a child. They tend to be more fiddly with things. So I'd weave in the ends a little bit more than this. But for my purposes, this is going to be good. Okay, so you're going to leave the tail, you can weave it in if you want, for where we ended our edging, but I'm going to show you how I join them. So what I found works the best, instead of doing a single crochet through both thicknesses, I'm actually going to do a slip stitch through the inside loops. So I'll explain what that means in a second, but it gives it a bit of a flatter feel to it. There's still going to be a little bit of puckering, but it's much flatter than if you were working a single crochet. So let's go ahead and join the 2 blocks together. So what we want to do is we want to have them with the right sides out, so the wrong sides are facing. So what I like to do first is I like to get my hook set up. So I'm just going to put a slip stitch on my hook, and you go ahead and you look at the pattern to tell you exactly the direction that your blocks are going to be. You'll see they either go with an arrow down, so it looks like all the diagonals are pointing down, or they'll go where it looks like they're pointing up. Okay, so I'm going to join these two together so I have them how they should be, and you'll see it makes an actual zigzag when you join the two together. For instance, if I were to put them like this, you'll see how it doesn't really match up. So you can kind of tell by how the pattern is, and I'll pull out so you can see a little bit more. So you see how here it matches up? That's what you want to have happen. Okay, so I'm going to pick them up so that the right sides will be facing me and the wrong sides are going to be facing. Okay, we're going to start at one of the corners, and we want to go to the middle stitch, the middle corner stitch. Okay, and what we're going to do is, if we look at the work here, you'll see how there's two loops, and we want to leave this edging, so we're going to go in the two inside loops. Okay, so if we look here, we're going to go into this loop, and we're going to go into this loop. Okay, if it helps you to do one at a time, inserting the hook, you can, and I'll show you what that means. So middle corner stitch, I'm going to go in, and then on this one, middle corner stitch. So let's see, I think I got to go one over. Yeah, this guy's the middle. Okay, we're going to grab our yarn and bring it through all the loops that are on the hook. Okay, now the way I like to weave in the tail is I'm just gonna, if you lay it flat over, it's not gonna do anything because we're not doing a single crochet. So we're actually gonna wrap it around our working yarn. So I brought it between the work, and then I'm just gonna bring it around to the back, and then I'm gonna go into the next stitch. So again, I'm going inside loops only. Gonna grab the yarn, bring it through both on the hook, gonna swing the tail around, and then do it again. Now each block, each side should have 28 plus 2 corner stitches, because there's 3 corner stitches. So the middle one kind of counts, but it's adding on 1. So you'll have 30 stitches across, and as long as you go 1 for 1, everything should line up well. So again, we're going to wrap our tail around, and we just keep going. Wrap the tail around, and you're going to do this until the tail almost disappears, and then I'll show you how it's gonna look. You're not going to be able to really see it much. Now, of course, if your tail was a different color, it would be more prevalent, but since we're all the same color, it kind of just blends in. And again, we're going to the 2 inside loops, and we're just going stitch for stitch. I'm going to wrap my tail around once, and then I think it's long enough that I can leave it, and then I'll just continue going stitch for stitch in those middle loops. Now if we stop and we take a look at what we've done, okay, you can see it looks like my tail poked through a little bit. So if that happens, because you see how I have a little splotch of that blue color, I'm just going to push it. Actually, if we look on the back, we can see it didn't get fully cut. So I'm just going to pop it so it's back on this side. Okay, and then later I'll cut it. And I'll do that for this one too. Okay, but you can see how you can't really tell where the tail is. Okay, so that got worked in seamlessly. And you're going to go across all the way, and then you're going to stop again at the middle stitch of each corner. Okay, so I'll come back once we've got that finished. Okay, so I've gone across and I'm just going to go into that the middle stitch of the corner, and then I'm going to cut my yarn and I'm going to break it. So what you'll be doing is you'll be making 4 strips. We have 24 blocks. You're going to put 4 strips of 6 together. Once you have the 6 all put together, then we add them up. So then you'll connect 2 of the 6 and you'll do the same way. You'll grab 2 of them, hold them with the wrong sides together, go through the inside loops of all of them. It does get a little tricky when you get to where they're joined. You just have to kind of do an extra one, an extra slip stitch in like the center of them, and it might not be able to go through a back loop, but that's okay. And then you're just going to weave in whatever ends you have and work on your border. And the border will be in the next part.